Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the This is the Music Meets Podcast, an independent podcast show that's dedicated to introducing you to rising indie and alternative artists from across the UK and Ireland. If you are new to the podcast, then please hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on any future episodes, and feel free to leave a comment as it really does help us beat those algorithms. It's now time for episode 124, and I'm delighted to be joined by Astoria, one of the most exciting rising bands on the indie scene. On today's episode, we're going to reflect on the band's musical journey so far, their big headline show at the Brundell Social Club, plans for 2025, which band member would survive a zombie apocalypse, and much, much more. So it is a very warm welcome to Ben, Alex and Vinny to the This is the Music Meets podcast. Thanks very much for coming on, fellas. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good, thank you. Excited, as always.
A lot of things coming up.
To say it's a Tuesday night, I'm pretty good in spirits, full of spirits, but yeah, good.
Yeah,
Tuesday night's not so bad for me. I get Wednesdays off, so
No, it's all right.
it's basically a Friday night for me tonight. So
brilliant. I wish, I could have tomorrow off as well. But hey ho, busy. But look, obviously, thanks for coming on, as I say, and obviously mentioning busy there. It's obviously a busy and clearly a very, very exciting time for you boys. But just before we sort of come on to the big headline show, what are we on, about 2 weeks or so away from that? But can you just sort of give the This is the Music listeners, sort of a bit of a background into how Astoria started, because you first started releasing music back in 2021, right?
Yeah, I think, Alex, you might be best to, you always put it best when it comes to the early years. But I think 2021 too, we had quite a few demos out. But I always like hearing it from Alex's perspective, to be honest, because I don't want to, when I talk about it, it's all like, oh yeah, I was doing this, I brought this guy and I brought this guy and whatever. I don't want it to sound like a me thing. So it's probably best you elaborate on that one, Alex.
So basically, it all started when we were at school. Probably, I think it's about 2018, something like that. So really, really early years for us anyway, with our ages, apart from Ben, obviously.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
And it was basically me and Vinny really from the start. A few other lads. Few of them came and went. Things went on. We got Luke in, got George in. We met George at a house party actually, which is a funny way of getting someone in. And things just went on from there. We just started, just practicing music. We were an Arctic Monkeys cover band for a little bit, which was a bit of a weird.
The B-Tech Monkeys.
The B-Tech Monkeys.
Nice.
And then obviously we brought George in. Started releasing music with Where the Light Lives, and Ben, Luke's brother, was caning us to try and get into the band. He was begging, and so we found a spot for him as well, and he's fitting perfectly ever since. And we all gel really well as a group, I think, and I think it's going to last for many more years anyway.
Yeah, we've had many formations, to be honest. Before Ben was in the picture, and before George was in the band as well, it was Alex playing bass, me playing guitar and singing, and Luke on drums. We even had a lad doing vocals at the time called Struan, great lad. He was in our original photo shoot as well. Not many of those photos ever came out, to be honest, because we never got to the recording stage in that formation. Struan left around the time that he decided to go up to university, and we thought, well, Luke was never a drummer. And we sort of knew George a little bit, and we proper chucked him in the deep end. We said, these are songs that we've got so far, a few phone recordings. And Luke was able to come up rhythm guitar, and straight away it changed. And a few gigs after that, a few sold out shows, which were his first ever gigs as well. We'd never done a support show. We didn't even know how to book a gig. Some guys offered us a show they called Voyager Events, and we sold it out in a matter of days, which was shocking to us because I think we'd released one song at that point. We did a follow-up to that, The Lending Room, which is about a 200, 250 capacity, and we were never expecting to sell that out, but just after sound check, he turned to us, the promoter, and he said, "Look, lads, the event's now sold out, and we've stopped selling tickets on the door." And still, that gig is a bit of an enigma, to be honest. We don't know where everyone came from. Just 2 sold out shows right off the bat with only 1 song released. There was no radio, there was no support shows, there was no one championing us at that point because we didn't know what to do or who to speak to. And it's just been learning from there how to keep the ball rolling, how to snowball that momentum. Sometimes we've let go of the handlebars a few times, and we got to a point where we ended up getting ready to headline the Wardrobe in Leeds, and Ben found that a great point to join the band.
Yeah, I were always there. We loved being my younger brother, and I like to say that I taught him how to play guitar. He'd probably disagree, but I taught myself how to play guitar and stuff, and I've always been into music all my life. And then finding out that Luke had joined the band, and none of my friends are particularly musicians or musical, and I was a bit like, "Oh, you joining a band? What about me?" So I were always there knocking at the door right from the very start. And I'd always go to the gigs and stuff as a spectator rather than standing on the stage. But it just got to a point where I was like, lads, I can't hold it any longer. I'm going to have to join, whether you like it or not. Even if it's being a bez on the side of the stage doing a bit of a dance, just let me be a part of it. So yeah, I wiggled my way through there. So I'm now on acoustic, and as time's gone on and we've been working more together on new songs and stuff, I'm just kind of working my way up. I'll be knocking Vinny off his pedestal soon, I think.
And you sort of have with new song as well, which I'm sure we'll get onto soon. But yeah, I mean, you basically taken lead vocals on the newest track, which was a difficult thing for us to do originally because it was such a drastic switch.
Yeah.
For what we're used to. But I mean, we're at a point where, you know, it's still early on. There's people's preconceptions about what we are and what a sound is entirely hasn't really formed yet. And still for us, you know, it's constantly evolving. In terms of formations of the band, I think we've reached where we know it's at the right spot now.
Yeah.
And I think that was the 2 things in there to make us feel like the difference between us being a few lads playing together to, oh, we're a band now, was the addition of George and then Ben. And I think that made all the difference.
Yeah, sure. Because I think there it's quite interesting actually hear you saying about like the sound of the band, because I think there does sometimes seem to be like this. What's the like? I guess, not sure that obsession's the right word, but people always seem quite keen, you know, to say, "Oh, well, you're this type of sounding band, you're this band," and you know, and not and almost then there's the pressure then actually on the band themselves to then, well, we need to write songs like that because that's what people are saying. But obviously, sounds like listening there that you guys are sort of fairly open to maybe, you know, trying to mix, not necessarily mixing your sound up as such, but that you are prepared to try and, I guess maybe that is actually the right word, to mix it up a little bit and depending, of course, on what's being written. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's a difficult one to balance because as much as it could be seen as a compliment, oh, you sound like Oasis, or you sound like, you know, bands like that, as much as you could take it as a compliment, I'd be leaning towards it being more of an insult, like it's been done before. So yeah. I think especially with us as a band, with especially our most recent stuff, we've just been doing a lot of experimenting and kind of working on crafting our own sort of sound by using different effects that are very rarely used and things like that. And I think we are slowly getting away from the, oh, you sound like this, you sound like that, to
you sound like you.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to sound like anyone but yourself.
Unique and yeah.
That's something I think we've done really well, especially with his most recent tunes, the stuff we put out this year. Like when we put out If I'm Like You, with the choppy helicopter synth almost and the guitar parts we've added in. I sort of tried to think about different bands, especially different bands on a scene, and just legendary bands as well. I started to think, who does it sound like? Because you need to think about this stuff, especially when you're writing press releases and, you know, when you're submitting your music to festivals or radio shows, you have to say, oh, it's for fans of what? And the more we think about that, it's like, I don't know who we sound like anymore, and it's a good thing ultimately. And we're constantly trying to get further away from not just what we think we sound like, but from what everyone else sounds like. And you can go too far with it at points, and we certainly have done with some songs that have never seen the inside of a studio. But I think for us, especially in the last year, it's been not just trying to define a sound, but trying to move away from everything else that we thought we wanted to be at the beginning. Because we found out that's what makes us unique. And I think that's the essence of why everyone does it, to be honest.
Yeah. So is that obviously because you then obviously 2021 you had your sort of first demo come out, and then there was another one like the year after. But obviously, there's been certainly when you look through on Spotify, there is obviously a gap of a couple of years. So is that effectively why there was that gap then? Because you guys were, constantly like rehearsing and writing, trying to sort of get it into a, your sound into a position that, hey, what we sound like a story, or we don't sound like, like an Oasis or Stone Roses or something like that. Is that sort of the reason for that break then?
Well, you can hear it in them two tracks, I guess, with Where the Light Lives. The riff was sort of a play on Sally Cinnamon. Some of the guitar parts were like originally written sound a bit Johnny Marr-ish, and the layered guitar chords, it sounds a bit Cure-ish, and everything on there wears its influence on its sleeve. And it did as well for How Does It Feel. That one was more, especially very like Manchester 90s kind of thing. And after that, when we went into the studio with Matt, ultimately it was, we wanted to just progress it to another level. I mean, it's some of the bands that we'd played with on some gigs, I had some of their stuff coming out, and I'm like, stuff's really good. I remember it was while we were warming up to headline the Wardrobe, met a few lads in a band called the Kites, and they jumped on to support us that night, and I was hearing the stuff they were doing, and I'm like, sounds ace that. And I'm like, I need to work with your producer. So ever since, we've been working with Matt Heap,
right,
who is like a sixth member of the band. He's been unbelievable and has encouraged us to take his influences far away from what we are. Before, we'd write a song and take it into the studio, and it'd sound like it sounded like. But now we take half a song into a studio and it comes out as something totally different. We got time to experiment, mess with stuff, and that's really when we could push the limits, to be honest. And it felt like from that point, which is probably releasing Don't Forget Me Now, which everything started to really change, to be honest. And especially on the next two tracks, because we'll be releasing half of it as well. And that's one we originally had as a demo track that we just wanted to give it this new treatment where we're putting synths in there now. And that's something in the beginning, like synths, we'd have been seen dead before we had a 808 or a Juno in his rehearsal room. But it's now at a point where, like, why not? Who else is doing it? If no one else is doing it, then we have to do it. And it really is at that point now. So it's made it easier to write songs as well. But definitely that gap was definitely a big transition, especially with us starting during COVID. And rehearsing during COVID, that was probably a big push for why his first two gigs sold. The world had opened up a bit more, and after that, it was like, right, we need a year or so here to really figure out what we're doing as a band. Working with promoters, looking at festivals, how do we do this? A lot of the boring stuff that comes with it, but I mean, all that is starting to pay off now, which has been really good.
Yeah, no, definitely. You can see obviously the work that's been going on behind the scenes, that it is definitely starting to pay off now. But just want to ask really about the sort of the creative process really. So how then do you guys approach the songwriting? Is it the lyrics that come first? Is it the melody of the song? And also, as well, are all of the band members contributing ideas to a track, or is it just very much like, no, this is how it's going to sound. You do this, you do that. How does it work?
I think for me, it's definitely I'll see what comes in, and then I'll see what the root notes are, and then play about with it a little bit.
Yeah.
See what I come up with. But I think when it gets into
Standard bass player talk, that, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, of course it is. But when we go into the studio, like Vinny says, we're going with half a song, and that's then all of us in the studio are all, we can all put our own opinions in, even though some of us might get told it's absolutely, absolutely shit. But then others will come out with ideas that are really good that no one else has thought of. So it's always good to do it as a group creatively. But I think as for a backbone of a song, I feel like Vinny and Ben are definitely the main creators for the backbones of the songs, and then we move on from there. They're the real creative ones in the band, really.
So one way of putting us.
Well, yeah. It depends. If you're talking about creative in the studio, that's a different thing altogether. Like Luke can come out with some amazing stuff in the studio. Matt comes out with some amazing stuff in the studio. So like me, Luke and Matt can be the most creative as far as in a studio sense. But in terms of what you bring into the studio, there's a creative element about that as well. What you take in there already. So, like Alex, with you and the new song, you already know what you're doing beforehand. Your creativity almost comes in the rehearsal room beforehand. So, especially with Dream Out Loud, the new one, that bass line you do at the end, that's something that you came out with, and we already knew your parts. So that's where your creativity comes in. And then for you, Ben, it's been more recently in a songwriting sense as like a collaborative, putting the tune together, where can we take it kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So really everyone has their own parts almost. And George, for instance, a lot of tracks like the half of it, and especially a new one we're writing as well, all starts from his drum parts. So really, it's come from everywhere, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think we all contribute in his own certain separate ways, but when it comes to actually putting the song together, we don't tell each other what to play. It just kind of starts as half a riff or something, and then George will come in with the drums, and then
I'll do that again.
And then I'll make an acoustic pattern of some sort, and Alex will come in with the bass, and it just kind of forms through that. But I think there's one thing creating the song in the rehearsal space, but then, as Vinny said, as soon as you take it into the studio, you leave after the second day, and it's just a completely different song. Whether it be the intro or the actual riff that we play, there's always something that changes massively, and we always come out with a completely different song to what we had when we came in.
Yeah, Matt'll be we'll take him the song and he'll say, right, we're going to move this verse here, and we're going to add a breakdown here. And then we're like, yeah, and then we all experiment from that, and then it's like starting fresh with a new song. And I mean, it should come easy to you. It creates an environment in that scenario where it almost does come easy. It's easy to get inspired. It's something about the way we all do it at the moment that feels like inspiration can come easy.
Yeah,
certain things like lyrics and the story of a song is something that oftentimes that comes afterwards, don't it? That's like the last thing that comes for us. So yeah, but I mean, I wish we could start with lyrics, but it's never been that way for us.
Yeah, sure, okay. So good to hear then that everyone's pretty much involved in that process, which I think is great to see. It's quite refreshing because I've come across other bands that maybe don't do it that way. So that's, personally, I quite enjoy hearing that. As I say, you've obviously put out there's 4 songs that are currently up on your Spotify, which you've racked up really impressive figures, to be fair. 108,000 Spotify streams, as I say, and you guys obviously have already mentioned earlier on that obviously that you are doing this all on your own, so you are really really hammering home that sort of DIY ethos and word of mouth in terms of the fans and getting your music heard. So looking at those releases that are there, have you got a particular personal favourite release that you've put out so far?
My favourite on Spotify anymore. Disillusion. I absolutely love Disillusion. It was a song that we released as a demo, It was probably in that time when there's a couple of years of a gap between Spotify. It was like an EP that they'd released. The half of it EP.
Demo EP.
Yeah, and I wasn't in the band at the time, but from a listener, I heard that and I was like, this is quality, this. But none of them like it apart from me, so I've lost the vote on that one. But when I were going to the gigs and listening to them and the first couple of gigs and they came out with How Does It Feel? Luke's mentioned before the gig, oh, we've got a new song, I think you're going to really like it. And I'm like, all right. So obviously I was there waiting for it. And then it was that. And I really, really like that. So in terms of the Spotify ones, or ones that are on Spotify, I'd probably say How Does It Feel? I think it's very... I grew up on Oasis and Stone Roses and the Smiths and things like that. And it reeks of Columbia for me. So I really like it. But that's my personal
I got to do a big John Frusciante guitar solo at the end of it as well. That we'd seen Chili Peppers, and after that I was like, oh, you got to let me rip a massive guitar solo at the end of one of his tunes with wah pedal going all. So in studio at the end I was like, yeah, we got to stick a massive solo on this. I had one attempt, and Luke said, "Yep, that's perfect." And I went, "Nah." Then I did the other one, 2 takes, second take, and that were it. And we just left that on there. And that's one I think we should redo properly at some point. Get it all a bit more dancey, a bit more rhythmic, especially get more of that 90s element out of it. But you know, there comes a time for everything. But as a demo, I think that sounds quite nice as it is. But my favourite at the moment is If I'm Like You. It's just the most unique thing we've done so far. I always wanted a riff like that, sort of like Ultraviolet by U2 or Where the Streets Have No Name, with that piercing guitar riff.
Yeah.
And the way we just changed it from that, dropped it out in the verses, changed Alex's bass line, the unique second bridge where we changed the rhythm completely. I just love that tune altogether.
Yeah, sure. And how about you, Alex?
Mine has got to be The Snow, just because of how we play it when it's live. When we play The Snow live, it just always goes so well. And I absolutely love playing it. That's the only reason I like it, basically.
that's only if Alex gets the first note right. If he doesn't, then it's a terrible.
I knew that was going to come. I knew that was going to come.
You know what? Recently, I've loved playing Don't Forget Me Now. There's something about it's very simple. It's a tune that just came off at like an acoustic guitar, just write a simple pop song kind of idea. And you know what? We've been opening with that one recently. But I've just loved playing that live every time. The little duet thing that we do when you do the harmonies on the chorus. Yeah. I just love hearing that. So I think that one's certainly, for me, underrated.
That was close in mine. I was going to mention it on the basis that it was the first song that I recorded properly with the band. I did do a couple of bits for the half of it, like the original demo. But as a first proper part of the band recording, it was that. And for me, it's everything that we've done recently has kind of span off the success that we think we've had on Don't Forget Me Now. Like, it was played at Ellen Road for like the past 2 seasons since it's been out, and going down and watching Leeds United, and as you're walking down to the stadium, being able to hear it on the tannoys and stuff, it's just something that it rings home with me. And that's probably one of my favourites for more of an emotional feeling rather than
that
song-wise.
Surreal that first time I heard it. Been going since I was like 8 or 9 year old.
Yeah.
I'd even before I even thought about music. You know, I had Leeds United before I had music. And I never thought to myself that I'd be walking into Ellen Road and hearing my tunes until I started hearing Skylights at Ellen Road.
Yeah.
And that started making me, because hearing YRA while walking into the stadium, I was thinking, oh, wouldn't it be good to hear one of ours? And shout out to Lee Nicholson. He's been absolutely wonderful, massive help for us. And that's a real, what do you call it? A real milestone, for us. Just hearing that booming round a stadium was surreal, to be honest. almost as good as us playing it ourselves. Like
Yeah.
it was just seeing videos that players warming up on TV or whatever, and you can just hear a song in background, and knowing that Jorginho Rutter and Archie Gray were listening to Astoria in the warm-ups. Probably why we didn't go up that year, to be honest.
Sick of hearing us.
And I guess
not these lads again.
Yeah.
We'll be singing "Don't Forget Me" now and all. Now half of them have buggered off, but
yeah, my team West Ham, we nicked one of your players in the summer as well, Somerville. So yeah, sorry about that.
It's all right. You got the Baldy sacked like at the weekend. That'll do enough for me.
Yeah, I must admit the Man United should have been about 4 or 5-0 up before half time, to be fair. But it was coming for him. But just going back, obviously to being played obviously at Ellen Road, I guess as well, when you hear as you were saying there about Skylights, and you hit obviously a band obviously in the same sort of city as yourselves, you must think as well. Well, you know that's someone that we know, that must be quite inspirational for you guys to think. Well, you know, next time, why can't it be us, right? Because obviously a lot of the I know myself, a lot of the football grounds all play, a lot of the old classic sort of songs, from sort of 90s, 80s, 70s, or whatever's like the popular pop song at that moment in time. But to hear a sort of a rock and roll sort of indie band type of thing, that must be quite inspirational for you boys to hear, knowing there could be a chance for us here as well.
Yeah, especially with Skylights. I mean, there's so many times where you just think, oh, it's not going to work. There's competing with too many people, or these radio don't want to hear this, or we can't get this gig or whatever. And you just think, there's times where you want to give up every year, constantly, always. But to be able to look over your shoulder and see someone like Skylights, and it wasn't exactly quick for them as well. I think they were playing around 2007, took a break, came back, and the story they had getting on Soccer AM and eventually doing O2 and now at Barbican. Just looking over your shoulder and seeing that, it's like, Jesus, they've done all that on their own, and it does give you that confidence. And I think it trickles down as well, because we've had people come up to us and say they saw one of our gigs early on and they started a band, and it was like almost seeing it thinking it really does trickle down, and if you can get one person excited for it or carrying on with it, then you've done something right. I mean, that's what music's about. But as far as it goes for us, what they've done especially is something that I'm constantly watching on in awe, because I mean, it just makes you think, you can do it. You can do it, and especially nowadays, I think we may need more artists like that. We need more people that make people look and think, yeah, I can do it. That's what Oasis did originally in the 90s. People saw Oasis and thought, Jesus, if they can do it, and that got them excited, seeing people like them, people they could relate to, or whatever. And it feels like the music industry drifts away from that year and year and year. But it's still a bright light in the music industry, especially in the UK indie scene, which is unique in its own way for carrying that torch, really. You still get that magic about it sometimes. So that's always great to see for me.
Yeah, no, definitely agreed. I personally absolutely love Skylights. I think they're a great band, really nice set of lads as well. And how baffles me how they're not on festival bills regularly and stuff like that. But that's obviously a story probably for another podcast, maybe.
Yeah, well, we've seen some stuff, and we have our own opinions that we share with them as well. Sometimes there's a bit of an elephant in the room that not everyone can discuss regarding some things, but for what they've done, especially for certain people and the shows they've put on and the crowds they've gathered, they should have been on more festivals and everything. Absolutely. I hope that if we were doing all that, then I would be able to take it with so much grace, because I think I'd have lost my mind, to be honest. I think I'd have lost it. I really would.
That's definitely understandable, and agreed. And hope that they're gig, obviously, that you mentioned at the Barbican in a few weeks isn't their last one. Hopefully they'll carry on, but we'll have to obviously watch this space on that. So I think we mentioned earlier on in this podcast that we're obviously recording it on a Tuesday evening. And for those that follow Astoria on social media, you may have seen today that you were teasing the names of a couple of new singles. Obviously, I've mentioned them in the podcast as well. One being Dream Out Loud, and the other one is called The Half of It. So the question really is, and this is a little bit cheeky, but we'll see whether or not what answer we get. So when are they going to be released? Is that before the Brundell? After? What's the plan?
All on the same day, so all of the above, really. So we've got the Brundell headline on the 15th of November, which is only a couple of weeks away, and to coincide with that, the release of the two new songs. Dream Out Loud and The Half of It, that they're coming out the morning of. So it's going to be a big Friday that day. But yeah,
trying to do all the release promo while in sound check is going to be a bit of a pain. We'll have to hand us phone to someone else for all of that. But
need someone to do PR for us, yeah.
Yeah, look, but that was a choice on his own backs, because streaming services and publishers, we work with Launchpad Plus at the moment, who've been great with us, especially helping with royalties and PRS, which is another ball game in itself. But you want to give 6 to 8 weeks. That is the magic number they always said for a release. Whether you announce it before then or not, that's on you. But we spent so long on The Half of It. We just wanted to get it perfect. I think we were driving Matt crazy, to be honest.
Driving ourselves crazy, I think.
To the point where we even got Dream Out Loud done as well, which, I mean, we spent ages and ages messing with these pedals, which I don't think you'd see on any guitarist pedal board. One called the Merisenzo, through something called a Strymon Cloudburst, which is like the weird angel whistling tones you can hear at the end of the song. We spent so long on that we only had about 4 weeks up until the gig, and we didn't want to release them straight after. We wanted it to be on the same day. Hopefully have a vinyl release as well, but I mean that takes so long now that that might be a next year plan. But so both of them are coming out on the 15th, the day of his big Brunel headline, and there's other gigs that I wish I could talk about, and I wish I could mention, but people currently have to talk amongst themselves about that one.
Brilliant, great stuff, and obviously, and that leads us on quite nicely actually to the next question, which obviously, as you just mentioned there, on Friday the 15th of November, so we're about 2 weeks away when we're recording this podcast. It's obviously your biggest headline show to date, I believe, at the Brunell Social Club, obviously being put on by the legends at This Feeling. The ticket link's going to be in the episode bio, so do please go and buy a ticket. If you can, if you're in the area on Friday the 15th of November, as I say. You've obviously got Cruz and Ace Tate as well on support. So how excited are you for this gig?
I just want it to be over, to be honest. I'm sick of thinking about it. It's been in the pipeline. It's been in the pipeline for so long, and we've been putting so much blood, sweat and tears into getting stuff out, getting people known, and, doing all these little things that you don't really think about. That, to be honest, I just want it over and done with, and then I don't have to think about it again.
Just wait till you see what we're announcing after the Brood.
I know. It's like as soon as we finish that bloody gig on 15th, on 16th, we're working towards the next thing that we're about to announce, and it's like, you just don't get any rest. But if I'm talking more honestly, I am really excited. It's been a long time coming. It's been something that we've been discussing for about a year now.
Yeah,
getting it sorted.
Because we had to convince This Feeling to get us onto it, because we'd not done a headline with This Feeling before. Our previous headline at the Wardrobe, that was January 2023, and we did that with Future Sound.
Right.
And a big gap was left after that, where we decided to start working with This Feeling for headlines in certain spots, and they've been brilliant with us. But they wanted us originally to start with a headline, but since we'd just done one, it was really difficult to organise. But they've been great with us. And eventually we bit the bullet and we were like, look, we're going to have to do a headline for them at some point. And I mean, it's taken months for us to get organised because Brundell's not an easy venue to book at all. It's always booked up, and when it is booked up, it's very hard for just anyone to get on, especially even as a support act. So that was huge for us. But I mean, yeah, it is about a year we've been trying to organise this, and look, it started paying off already with certain gig offers and certain things we're hearing about the year ahead. But I mean, you do something like this, you put so much into it, and you work really hard for it. And if it all goes well afterwards, you don't rest, you just start again. Because we put everything into this Brood gig, and the day after, we're going to be like, well, work starts here again. It's a big cycle, but it's really about using that as a launch pad, bouncing off from that. Because I mean, there ain't many local bands that get to headline a place like the Brood now.
Such an iconic venue, isn't it? If you look at people that have played there in the past, you're talking about, playing alongside giants like Fontaine's DC, Sam Fender. Yard Acts did Tom Jones, yeah. Everyone's played there, all the big ones, and it's one of those unsung heroes, especially within Yorkshire in terms of venues that everyone knows about it. Yeah, like the Lead Mill in Sheffield, exactly the same, where everyone knows about it. And for people like us joining bands as youngish lads, I'm saying youngish because I'm considerably older, but everyone's dream once you start a band around here is to, don't look at the headlines. Everyone's dream is to headline the Brundell, and the fact that we can say that we're doing it and soon to be having done it, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, and the two bands we're bringing with us as well, Cruise and Acetate. I mean, we've got a great lineup for it as well, because we genuinely didn't know who to have on support, and it's dead weird for us because you put on a gig like that, and you spend most of your time trying to get on supports for other shows, and then when it comes around to doing your own, you're like, all right, who now? And it was so hard because there's so many great bands out there. But we played with Cruise down at the Lead Mill. This Feeling got that sorted out for us, and we're going to get them on at our Brood gig. They were absolutely fantastic. Their headline gig were really good, and we really enjoyed playing there as well. It was such a lovely venue. And I say I haven't been able to see yet, but look, there's some. I've had a few people in my ear being like, "Get these lads on, get these lads on." So. I mean, we had to do it in the end. I mean, but there's a million bands that would love to play at the Brood now, and we got loads of emails and loads of people requesting to play, and it was so good to go through people's applications and everything, and we felt horrible having to only be able to pick two in the end, because ultimately you pick two and that's great, but ultimately there's so many other people you're letting down. So I mean, it is an horrible business at times, but you're doing something all right if you're getting your inbox full of people wanting to jump on the gig. So yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah, sure. And Alex, I'll come to you on this one. And obviously, for those that haven't seen Astoria live before, what can they expect from this big headline show?
They can expect, well, hopefully an half decent crowd, massive tunes, big. It's as if you're back watching AC/DC with the wall of speakers.
Alex, do you want to do that answer again, mate?
Did I cut out?
No, I
hopefully
think the comparison doesn't. Maybe I don't think the comparison will rub off well on people. I won't compare us to AC/DC. I think
that's not what I mean. I mean, like, it's just big, really massive sound.
It is big. It is huge, and
it sounds.
Did you say we're going to be next to AC/DC? Is that what you said?
I did not say that. I said if you take it back to AC/DC when they had the wall
chicken walking online,
and it just sounded massive. That's what it's just going to sound huge. Again, Cruise as well is one that I've seen before and heard, and they're going to sound huge as well. And it's just going to be an absolutely cracking night, really. So it's going to be
brilliant. Well, it sounds like you're proper excited for it, and I'm sure it's going to be a great show. And obviously, it sounds like you've got some other exciting stuff as well coming up after that as well. So good luck with it on Friday the 15th of November. And as I say, in the episode bio, we've got the ticket link as well. So yeah, if you're listening to this, go and buy a ticket for that show. So on every This Is the Music Meets podcast, we ask all of our guests a series of questions that are sort of designed to be a little bit more light-hearted and help the listeners find out a little bit more about the artists that we are interviewing. So the first question is, what artists on sort of the underground new music scene have you guys been checking out over the last 12 months?
Try go on this one.
Yeah, we'll all do one. I need to think.
I love a bit of indie music, especially sort of the homegrown sort of underground bands. For me, well, I call them underground, but they're pretty well known now. But Pastel, from Manchester, from Swansea. Seen them a couple of times now, and they're going to be special, 100%. And you see, well, they did Neb with William Gallagher, for example, and it's quite inspirational for a band like us. But also a band from York called Seratones.
Yeah,
I love them to bits. I didn't even realise that the lead singer Duke were Rick Waiter's son, for example. But I saw them again at the Brundell when This Feeling put an event on. I can't remember what it was called now, Rewired or something like that.
yeah,
and
Rewired.
I went there for the day and went in to see Seratones. Never heard them before, and I was blown away by the music, and I've listened to them since quite often. So yeah, them two for me as my standouts.
Yeah, nice choices.
I think for me, certainly since playing with us as well and going on to see what they've done since, I've really loved watching the Kites. They're a great set of lads, and it feels weird calling them underground now because they opened up Leeds Fest this year.
Yeah.
And but there's the link with our producer as well, so it's always great hearing how they're doing. As far as like with This Feeling, I know they're like right at the upper echelons, but seeing what the K's have got up to as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, I think it was in 2019 while we were on a high school ski trip, on my Spotify release radar. It must have been when it first came out because they hardly had out on the Spotify, and it was Sarajevo.
Yeah.
And I think it just had a couple thousand streams. And I listened to it, and I'm like, yeah, this is really good. I remember showing it to Alex, and Alex was like, yeah, it's all right. Well, he loves the K's now anyway. But going on and looking at what they've done, I mean, the amount of gigs they played, the graft is unbelievable. Because, I mean, you see loads of bands cancelling shows for different reasons, and I'm sure it's a terrible business at times. I'm sure it takes a lot out of you. But there's some that you just see, they just keep going, and it's almost like there aren't enough days. If there were 600 days in a year, they'd play 700 shows, and I think they're one of them. So it's great seeing what they're doing, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I think I saw something today that I think they played about 100 shows this year, which is an incredible amount.
Yeah. All that traveling as well. I mean, very little of your time would be spent actually playing music live. I mean, that is just traveling. So it's unbelievable what they're doing, and hats off to them in all aspects, really. Definitely.
Yeah, agreed totally with you there. And Alex, how about yourself?
I've been really loving the Lilacs at the minute. Been listening to them and the Ratings as well. I think the Ratings, I've probably been listening to them a lot more. I think they're an absolute class little lads. I haven't had a chance to see them yet, but I've been really enjoying listening to the music anyway.
They did Sheffield Arena, didn't they?
Yeah. So they're not really underground anymore, but
no, definitely. But it's good to see though that that they're what they've built themselves up to, and obviously where they are now. It's great to see, and long may that continue, and just really liking the choices that you've come up with. There's some some really, really strong bands in there, and hopefully they'll all continue on that upward curve that they're on. So,
I'd throw in as well the Kairos. That tune they've just released is fantastic. It's brilliant. I've had that stuck in my head for the past couple. Just from hearing previews, that is a fantastic tune that they've just put out. So I almost forgot about them, but they're off on tour, and I'm sure that's going to sell out all over the place.
I love them. They're another great band, and look, they're in London at the end of next month. So looking forward to seeing them live again, because they are a wicked live band as well. Sound exactly the same as on the record, which I think again is another unique selling point for them. So if Astoria could play one song from what you've released so far for the rest of your career, but you had to play it in a different style, either country or jazz or hip hop or something like that, what song would you choose, and in what style would you play it in?
I think Where the Light Lives, just because we joke about it in rehearsals, but I actually do a really good ska version.
The ska version.
We do an amazing ska version of that, so that's the one I'd pick.
Yeah, no, that you're spot on with that.
Yeah.
Just any of his songs in the style of Bob Dylan, so Vinny can do it. He's got a great Bob Dylan.
I'm not about to do the impression, by the way, but I guess If I'm Like You could sound like a good country track.
I don't know.
That's a really tricky one.
That's solid.
I think Alex has hit the nail on the head with Where the Light Lives in ska.
We could do a pretty good jazz version of Where the Light Lives as well.
Well, the ska version is really spot on. We'll give it a go on Saturday. I don't think it'll be released anytime soon, but I could definitely see that. I think that's the only one we've tried to rework in a different.
I think we've done Don't Forget Me, and that was a bit of a rap once or twice.
Have we?
When I look for cover, I'm sure there'll be somewhere in there, but
it'll be on like a best of later on down the line.
Yeah, when we start doing his Arctic Monkeys Tranquility Base bloody concept album, we'll make sure to add that in there. We'll do a reggaeton version.
Get Nick Knowles to sing for us. That'd be a good.
So this next question, obviously, it's that time of year, so it is quite topical, to be honest. So, which member of the band would survive longest in a zombie apocalypse, and what would their secret weapon be?
Alex, no offense, I think you'd last the shortest, and that's
not a height joke either.
I knew that would come in. I didn't even say anything. I just knew it would come in.
I think you'd lose your head. To be honest.
You know what? If I could get my hands on a pair of armor, set of armor, and a bike, a bicycle, I think I'll be.
You looting Royal Armouries?
Hey, it's only a road, isn't it? So why not?
Luke won't last 2 seconds.
I think George would be a bit of a dark horse. Really, I really think he'd be a dark horse.
I'm just going to say me,
No, George.
I'd last the longest.
George would fall asleep. He'd get done in his sleep. George.
They wouldn't notice him, would they? Because he's asleep.
I think, Ben once had to break into George's house while he was sleeping.
I did.
Because he didn't wake up in time for the studio. His poor sister was absolutely petrified, thought they were being robbed. Just won't answer the phone, won't answer the door. We had to break in to get him. Funniest recorded day.
That's how I've been through the kitchen window now, walking around his house, like, where is it?
We were whispering, like, which door is it? I went, all right, Ben, one of them's his sister's bedroom, so make sure you knock. Genuinely terrifying.
I know I was knocking and I walked in and his alarm was going off and he was still snoozing.
Wow.
It took me about 5 minutes to wake him up, honestly.
Brilliant. There you go. Well, you heard it here first.
We'll go me.
What a load of knackers, man.
Okay, so right, if Astoria had to compete in a talent show, but you couldn't perform music, what weird hidden talents would you showcase?
Hmm.
What are you good at, Ben? Apart from
I'm good at a lot of things, Vincent.
oh, I know I've got something. I just can't put my finger on it. Go on, Alex. What would you do?
Yeah, I need to
You've
think
got-
this now.
I would probably. Have you ever seen the SpongeBob movie when they're doing the slapping,
Yeah.
making music by slapping each other?
Oh,
You are?
That's what I do.
that's music.
Yeah.
That's music.
Ah,
That's
yeah, but is it
music.
musical when you don't have an instrument? I don't know about
I think me and Vinny would go on joint, and potentially Luke as well, on identifying military aircraft. We're pretty nerdy on them. And I'm pretty nerdy on Pokemon as well, and I'm not afraid to say either.
I think
Brilliant.
we've got on film somewhere. Me and you having an argument over
Yeah.
a painting on the wall.
Would
with
it
another
Spitfire
kind
or
of
Hurricane?
It were a badly drawn Spitfire. and
It was an Hurricane, mate. It was an Hurricane.
We have the photos anyway. In fact, I'm going to post it on Twitter, and we'll let everyone else have their opinion on it. It was not a hurricane.
Let the people decide.
Yeah.
So if you had to choose a new band name based on the last thing that you ate, what would you be called?
Cottage pie, really, isn't it? or sardine with tomato sauce.
Toads in the hole.
That's not bad.
I like that. I like that.
that. Oh, the mac and cheese, man. That'd be mine.
I thought you were going to
that's
say toast
good,
and butter.
Half man, half biscuit.
Brilliant, great stuff. The mac and cheese, man. I'm liking that.
What Luke's be? Garlic mushrooms.
The everything's.
You can't say that, man.
Oh dear.
So, sort of, you have kind of like mentioned, obviously, a little bit in the podcast, kind of like what the future does look like, for Astoria. But sort of how excited are you? Once you've got this headline gig, out of the way, sort of how excited are you for the plans that you have got in store? Without probably giving too much away from what you were saying earlier on.
We're very, very excited, more excited than we've probably ever been, considering the amount or the things that we've spoken about upcoming, but also very apprehensive as well. I know we've put a lot of work in this year in getting this Brundell headline sorted, but it's just a case of once that's done, we won't have any rest. There ain't no rest for the wicked, I guess, but it's straight back on it and working towards the next thing, which will ultimately lead towards quite a big 2025. So more apprehensive than anything, but really exciting as well. Like the opportunities that we've got coming our way, it's one that we really need to take grasp of and keep it close to his chest, really.
Yeah, I think some things next year that are going to be happening are things we set out to do from the start. And, some that I thought in the beginning we never thought we'd do. Something that makes us feel like we've really taken the next step, something we've had as eyes on for a while. So the summer is going to be very, very exciting for us. But on top of that, everything else, and there's things we've worked really hard for, being like, this is what we're targeting next year, this is what we're targeting, and now that is happening, we can almost focus on, all right, what else can we do? So it's good because, last year, especially 2023, we didn't do much, which was weird because we released Don't Forget Me Now, at that playing around Ellen Road. We played a few gigs, but we didn't really do an headline after his wardrobe one. So it feels nice to know that after the hard work we've put in for this Brunel gig, that we've got his eyes on something else already. We already know what's coming, and it's just build from there, really. So we're already seeing the benefits of it. from now. A lot more people are going to hear his music, see us live for the first time, and hopefully the right ears pick up on it as well. It's about the time that, major radio stations might start hearing about us, which, I mean, we already know that they have. So we just have to make sure we write a song less than 6 minutes long, and we might be in luck.
Yeah, that's the thing with radio play, right? It's always the shorter the better, I think, is what they look for. But that's not necessarily the best way of doing it. But look, Alex, Ben, and Vinny, thanks very much for coming on the latest episode of the This Is the Music Meets podcast. I'll get my words out eventually. Thanks very much, for coming on and being such great guests. But before I do let you go, can you just let the This Is the Music listeners know where they can find Astoria on social media?
Oh, you're the ones for that. It's Astoria Leeds on Instagram and Twitter. X. It's X now, isn't it?
Well, it's Twitter. It's always Twitter. Yeah, Astoria Leeds everywhere. Really. On Spotify, Astoria, Astoria. I think
YouTube's Astoria.band, I believe.
Is it? No, it should just be Astoria Leeds. But, I mean, whatever, it'll pop up. I think we're near the top of the searches now, so that's a good milestone to hit. But Astoria all over. Biggest on Instagram and Twitter, but that's where you can find us.
Brilliant.
As well, at the gig, we will be raising a little bit of money for Movember, close to the time. It'll be on the stories, things like that. But that was just to put it out there, just so people know.
Shameless. Absolutely shameless.
Sorry, mate, but I will never be shameless. Shameless for charity, anyway.
Brilliant. Look, well, I think that's a great cause to be. Movember, fantastic. So fair play if you're doing that, and we will put the links to the social media of Astoria in the episode bio, as well with the ticket link as well for the Brundell Social Club gig on Friday, the 15th of November. Just one final thing before I do let you go. On recent This Is the Music Meets Podcasts episodes, we've ended the show with a song from our guests. So what Astoria song would you like to end the podcast on tonight?
You go for it, Alex. You pick. It's
Don't forget me now. Go on, go for it.
Yeah, underrated, I think.
Excellent, great stuff. Well, that you'll be able to hear that song at the end of this podcast. Fantastic choice. I'm really excited to see the plans that you've got coming up, and obviously to hear as well the 2 new singles as well that you mentioned earlier on in the podcast. Good luck with the headline show in a couple of weeks. Really looking forward to seeing the videos and whatnot across social media. And hopefully, if you're coming down to London next year, might be able to catch you up in person and experience an Astoria gig live for myself.
Hopefully. Seeing as plans.
Sounds good.
And all that leaves me to say is to thank everyone for listening to the latest This Is the Music Meets podcast. Please subscribe so you never miss out on any brand new episodes. And if you're loving the podcast, show us some love by giving us a rating and written review, as it really does help the artists we interview to be discovered. If you are listening to this episode on Spotify or Apple Podcast, then stay tuned, because at the end of this episode, you'll be able to hear a track that was chosen by Astoria on today's This Is the Music Meets podcast. Remember, the future is bright, the future is indie, and I'll see you very, very soon for another This Is the Music Meets podcast.